for American history, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
So
there's nothing after America. There's nothing before
right,
America was created, right?
what is it that Ron Swanson used to say? And
Nothing
everything?
happened before 1776.
Yeah, everything that happened before 1776 was a mistake. Nah, so I mean, because honestly, like Eastern Europe and everything, even Western Europe, the sleeping techniques really didn't change
No, for a long time.
hundreds, almost 1,000 years and everything. Whoever figured out the wool blanket in the first place pretty much set humanity.
Well, that's how you look at inventions, anyways. They start one, and it takes a long time until there's actually a change. Then it's like a snowball effect after that.
Pretty much, and that's kind of
It's a
how it
very
went.
slow
I mean,
snowball.
we had generation upon generation of using that wool blanket, or using like down feathers in more of a like a linen woven
Yeah.
quilt, things like that. And so you look at what somebody might use and everything in the Americas. Honestly, they're looking at, they take a wool blanket constantly with them because you don't know if you're going to be stuck out or not. And unfortunately, there's many accounts of people losing that wool blanket,
Oh.
which is really sad because they were very expensive.
Oh yeah, I mean, a real wool blanket, nice one today, is super expensive stuff too, and it pisses me
A
off.
lot of common reports, especially for like the Rocky Mountain fur trade era
Yeah.
and everything, was 6 to 8 beaver pelts was one blanket.
Holy crap!
Yeah, to put that more in perspective, you could drink your entire time at Rendezvous, which keep in mind, Rendezvous used to be 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And everything. You could drink your entire time every single day at Rendezvous and everything on one beaver pelt.
Wow.
So these were expensive pieces of gear and everything. There's a reason that they were so highly coveted as trade goods for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
So when you look at it, and I might stumble here, so you might have to edit.
No, you're fine. You're good. Yeah.
So when you look at it, you have to look at, they'd always try and take that blanket with them. And then if they're still going to be in camp, they might have the addition of a secondary blanket, which in warmer months they might fold in half and stuff with down pine needles or leaves and everything to give kind of a mattress.
Whatever, they can't make it comfortable. Okay.
Yeah, make like a mattress. And then they might also use in colder months and everything, wrap up with both of the blankets and everything, have that double layer.
Yeah.
Or if they had the option, or they felt it was a better option, they might, even if they didn't have anything for cold weather months to wear on their outer body, they might turn one of them into a coat.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So they could use it as a match coat, which is a way to tie and pin it, or they'd have somebody actually make them a full coat out of it. But the wool blanket itself was so highly coveted. Really, it was coming more into early 50s is when we started getting more towards what we think of today as a sleeping bag, right? The Czech sleeping bag, and sleeping bag, or they call it the Czech bedroll. We see that pop up, 40s, 50s, and everything like that. But World War II, we were still using quite a few wool blankets.
Yeah.
And everything. There were some early model like sleeping bags, but primarily a lot of soldiers were still sticking with the wool blanket.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so, but 50s, everybody's back home from war and everything. We're, economy's up. People are starting to spend more time out in the outdoors and everything. So you're seeing, kind of a mixture of, some people are taking that tried and true wool blanket, but some people are also having the new, what they call fart bags at the time. A lot of the old timers would call them fart bags.
Oh, I understand that one. I know where they're
right. Yeah, right. Especially if you have that onion soup mix before bed.
Gosh.
Oh, that thing will kill you.
Oh my gosh, I no underwear in the world to be safe. Yeah, but go on. Sorry.
No, you're good. So eventually, what we ended up having was the originally wool blanket, or originally sleeping bags were made out of like a canvas material and everything with duck down on the inside. They're heavy, they're bulky, they're cumbersome. You're gonna have a great night's sleep when you made
absolutely.
one.
I can just tell by the material.
Yeah, I haven't like one of the old like 1950s ones, and it is one of my best sleepers. It's amazing.
You probably don't hike with it, but
no, that thing is heavy.
Well, I mean, I think that's another thing you got to put in your, when you're choosing on a sleeping bag. Am I carrying this thing, or am I, because I remember my dad, he had a sleeping bag that could like literally crunch down to like a pound and a half, and super small, right? It looked like a pillow. And for when we do our big long hikes, absolutely. But when we get out of the car, he's like, no, I want a nice, good, warm sleeping bag at the same time. So no, I totally get that.
Yeah, and what's interesting is when you look back to like when we were converting for like outdoor camping, like from the wool blanket to the sleeping bag, you had a couple variations on the middle ground on that. So you'd have where they just make blankets really, really long and everything, where they might only be 4 feet wide and everything, but they'd be a good like 16, 15 feet long. And the reason for it is
So you'd fold them.
you'd fold it over
Oh,
the top
okay,
of you
okay,
and
that's
tuck the
what I mean.
sides under. So you were essentially in a sleeping bag
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah.
They also just had it where they just take, if they couldn't afford one like that because they were expensive, they would just take 2 regular sleeping bags and sew them together to make a full sleeping bag and
Okay.
everything. I figured out, and I'm sure because nobody has an original idea anymore, I figured out with my king size wool blanket that there's a way to like fold it over, and I sewed in ties to it. So I fold over on one side,
I've
tie
seen
it,
it. Yeah, yeah.
then do the other side, tie it, and then I'm in a sleeping bag essentially. So that way, like I can untie the top and be moving around, setting wood on the fire or something like that, but I'm not coming out of it just like I would with a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting kind of mix there on people trying different things, eventually trying to get a sleeping bag, and eventually once we in mainstream society just had the sleeping bag and everything as the staple camping sleeping equipment and everything, then of course everybody's got to make it better.
Oh, well, that's good though.
We get into the 70s and everything. What I would say is more the height of popularity of American backpacking movement and everything. You start seeing aluminum made frames and everything that you're lashing your sleeping bag to the outside. You start seeing sleeping bags that were made lighter and everything. You started seeing them made out of nylon and everything. It wasn't ripstop, so if you got a rip in it, you were screwed.
Oh, yeah.
But like they started moving that way, and eventually we got into the ripstop, and then now we got into ultra loft and everything that there is now. And so it's just like you said, once you figure that first step out, then it spirals because everybody's got a way to make it better.
Howdy y'all, Coyote here. If you enjoyed the clip you just heard, you can listen to the whole episode on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, or anywhere else you like to listen to your podcast on. And if you really like the clip you just heard, please consider giving us a like or click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on new episodes coming at you every week.